The CEO slapped the single father so hard that the entire cafe went silent. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. Conversations stopped. Coffee cups froze halfway to people's lips. Even the barista behind the counter forgot what she was doing. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Everyone simply stared. The man who had been slapped did not fight back. He did not yell. He did not even raise his voice. He stood there quietly, one hand resting on the shoulder of the little girl beside him. She could not have been older than 8. Her eyes were wide with fear as she looked up at her father. "You embarrassed yourself," the CEO snapped. "You should learn where you belong." She wore an expensive designer suit and carried herself like someone who was used to controlling every room she entered. People knew her face. She was Victoria Steele, the powerful CEO of one of the largest technology companies in the city. Newspapers often called her the Iron Queen because of her aggressive business style. The father simply lowered his eyes and comforted his daughter. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said softly. But it was not okay. Everyone in the cafe knew it. A few minutes earlier, the father had accidentally bumped into Victoria while helping his daughter carry a tray. A small amount of coffee had spilled onto Victoria's sleeve. Instead of accepting the apology, her anger exploded. Now dozens of people watched in uncomfortable silence. Some secretly recorded with their phones. Others looked away. Nobody expected what happened next. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. Standing a few feet behind Victoria was her bodyguard, Marcus Reed. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a serious expression. He had worked security for important people for many years. Usually, nothing surprised him. But as he looked at the father, something caught his attention. A scar. It stretched across the man's wrist and disappeared beneath his shirt sleeve. Marcus stared. His face suddenly lost all color. His breathing became uneven. The memory hit him like a truck. A burning vehicle. Smoke. Screams. Blood. And a man with that exact scar. 3 words escaped Marcus's mouth before he could stop himself. "He saved me." The cafe became even quieter. Victoria turned toward him. "What did you say?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the father. The father looked back at him calmly, almost as if he already knew what Marcus was remembering. And that was the moment everything began to change. Nobody inside the cafe understood why a powerful bodyguard looked terrified. Nobody understood why his hands were shaking. But the truth was even bigger than that. The scar was only the beginning. The real story started many years ago on a rainy night that Marcus had spent half his life trying to forget. Back then, Marcus had been a young police officer. He was brave, ambitious, and determined to make a difference. He believed he could protect everyone. Then came the warehouse fire. A criminal gang had been using an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Police received information that hostages were being held inside. Marcus was among the officers sent to investigate. What should have been a simple operation quickly turned into a nightmare. The criminals had prepared explosives. The moment officers entered, the building erupted into chaos. Fire spread rapidly. Walls collapsed. People ran in every direction. Marcus became trapped beneath a steel beam. The flames moved closer every second. His radio stopped working. His leg was pinned. And for the first time in his life, he believed he was going to die. He shouted for help. Nobody came. The heat became unbearable. Smoke filled his lungs. His vision blurred. Then someone appeared through the flames. A stranger. Not a police officer. Not a firefighter. Just an ordinary man. The stranger ignored the danger. Ignored the collapsing roof. Ignored the explosions. He fought his way through the fire and reached Marcus. "You need to move," the stranger said. Marcus still remembered those words. Even now. Even after all these years. The stranger lifted the steel beam using every ounce of strength he had. His wrist was badly cut during the effort. A sharp piece of metal tore across his skin, leaving a deep scar. The same scar Marcus had just seen in the cafe. The stranger dragged him outside seconds before the roof collapsed. Then he disappeared. No reward. No interview. No recognition. Nothing. Marcus spent years searching for him. But he never found him. Until now. Standing in front of him was the man who had saved his life. The man who had risked everything for a stranger. Marcus felt ashamed. Ashamed that he had stood there and allowed it to happen. Victoria frowned. You know him. Marcus slowly nodded. More than you realize. The father looked uncomfortable. He clearly did not want attention. He glanced down at his daughter and squeezed her hand. But attention was no longer avoidable. The entire cafe was listening. People leaned forward. Phones continued recording. Everyone sensed something important was unfolding. Victoria crossed her arms. Then explain. Marcus took a deep breath. You see that scar? Victoria looked at the father's wrist. Yes. That scar exists because he saved my life. The words spread through the room like electricity. Whispers filled the air. Victoria's confidence weakened for the first time. But she still did not understand. She still believed this was merely an emotional story. What she didn't know was that the quiet father standing before her was carrying a secret that would shake her entire world. A secret connected not only to Marcus. Not only to the city. But also to her own company. And before this day ended, that secret would force her to question everything she thought she knew about power, success, and the people she judged at first glance. Victoria looked at the quiet father again, but this time the confidence on her face had begun to crack. The whispers inside the cafe grew louder. Customers who had been preparing to leave sat back down. Nobody wanted to miss what would happen next. Marcus stepped closer to the father. Sir, after all these years, I finally found you. The father sighed. Marcus, you don't owe me anything. Those simple words only made Marcus respect him even more. The man had saved a life and never asked for recognition. Victoria noticed the reaction of her bodyguard. She had trusted Marcus for years. He was calm under pressure and rarely showed emotion. Yet now he looked like a man standing before a hero. Who are you? Victoria asked. The father remained silent for a moment. His daughter gently tugged on his sleeve. Dad, maybe we should go. He smiled softly at her. Soon, sweetheart. Then he looked at Victoria. My name is Daniel Carter. The name meant nothing to most people in the cafe. Victoria shrugged. Fine. Maybe you helped Marcus years ago. That doesn't change what happened here. Several people frowned at her response. Marcus looked disappointed. But Daniel simply nodded. You're right. It doesn't change what happened. His calmness made Victoria uncomfortable. She expected anger. She expected an argument. Instead, Daniel acted as if none of this mattered. Then Marcus's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and immediately answered. As he listened, his expression changed. First confusion. Then shock. Then complete disbelief. Are you serious? He asked. Several seconds passed. Understood. He ended the call and stared at Daniel. This can't be real. Victoria crossed her arms. What now? Marcus swallowed hard. The board meeting scheduled this afternoon. What about it? The new majority shareholder is arriving today. Victoria nodded impatiently. Everyone in the company had been talking about it for weeks. A mysterious investor had quietly purchased a controlling interest in the corporation. Nobody knew his identity. Even Victoria had never met him. The board only knew that he would finally reveal himself today. What does that have to do with anything? She asked. Marcus looked directly at Daniel. Everything. The cafe became silent once again. Victoria slowly turned toward Daniel. What are you talking about? Daniel rubbed his forehead as though he wished this conversation were happening somewhere else. Marcus, he said quietly. Please don't. But it was too late. Marcus had already connected the pieces. He pulled out his phone and opened a photograph from a company report that had been sent to executives earlier that morning. Although the image was old, the face was unmistakable. Marcus held the screen up for Victoria to see. Her eyes widened. Then widened even more. The man in the photograph was younger. He wore a suit and stood beside several investors. But it was Daniel. The same man she had slapped less than 10 minutes earlier. Victoria stared at the screen. Then at Daniel. Then back at the screen. No, she whispered. Marcus nodded slowly. Yes. The room exploded with whispers. Phones immediately pointed toward Daniel. Nobody could believe it. The quiet single father wearing simple clothes was the mysterious investor everyone had been discussing. Victoria felt her stomach tighten. This has to be some mistake. Daniel looked at her calmly. It's not. For the first time all day, Victoria had no response. The powerful CEO who could dominate boardrooms full of executives suddenly looked lost. She had judged a man because of his appearance. She had assumed his worth based on his clothes. And now she was learning that the men she humiliated had more authority in her company than anyone else. The cafe doors opened again. Several people in business suits hurried inside. The moment they spotted Daniel, they rushed toward him. Mr. Carter, one of them said nervously. We've been looking everywhere for you. The board meeting starts in less than an hour. The entire cafe heard every word. Daniel sighed. I'll be there. The executive nodded. The directors are waiting. Victoria felt as though the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. She remembered every rude word she had spoken. Every judgment she had made. Every assumption. And now those moments were being replayed in front of dozens of witnesses. But Daniel surprised everyone. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't enjoying her embarrassment. He wasn't seeking revenge. Instead, he looked tired. Very tired. The kind of tiredness that comes from carrying pain for many years. Victoria finally found her voice. Why? She asked quietly. Daniel looked confused. Why what? Why are you here? Why are you dressed like this? Why sit in a public cafe when you could be anywhere? Daniel glanced at his daughter. His expression softened immediately. Because this is our favorite place. The little girl smiled. Dad brings me here every Saturday. Daniel nodded. Ever since her mother passed away. The room fell silent again. The girl lowered her eyes. Victoria suddenly felt ashamed. She had been so focused on status that she had never noticed the sadness hidden behind Daniel's calm smile. Daniel continued. My wife loved this cafe. After she died, my daughter and I kept coming here. It helps us remember the good times. Nobody spoke. Even the employees behind the counter listened quietly. The company isn't the most important thing in my life, Daniel said. My daughter is. The little girl squeezed his hand. Victoria looked away. For years she had measured people by success, money, and influence. Yet the man standing before her seemed to value none of those things. Despite his wealth, he chose simplicity. Despite his power, he chose kindness. And despite the humiliation he had just experienced, he showed no desire for revenge. That realization hurt more than any public criticism could have. Marcus stepped forward. Sir, I spent 15 years searching for you. Why did you disappear after saving me? Daniel smiled faintly. Because heroes are supposed to save people, not collect rewards. The answer hit everyone in the room. Several customers wiped tears from their eyes. The story was becoming something much bigger than a confrontation in a cafe. It was becoming a lesson about character. About humility. About judging people too quickly. Victoria finally stepped forward. For the first time in years, she felt nervous. Daniel. She hesitated. I'm sorry. Nobody expected the Iron Queen to apologize. Yet there she was, standing before the entire cafe. I judged you without knowing you, she continued. I was wrong. Daniel studied her face for several seconds. Everyone waited. Some expected him to reject the apology. Others expected him to demand her resignation. But Daniel simply nodded. Thank you. That was all. No anger. No punishment. No public humiliation in return. Just acceptance. And somehow that made Victoria feel even worse. An hour later, the boardroom of the company was completely silent. Every director sat waiting. Victoria entered beside Daniel. The atmosphere felt different from any meeting they had ever attended. News from the cafe had already spread through the building. Employees whispered in hallways. Executives exchanged nervous glances. When Daniel entered the room, everyone stood. He motioned for them to sit. Then he walked to the front of the room. His daughter sat quietly near the window, coloring in a notebook while the meeting began. Daniel looked around the table. Most of you know me as an investor, he said. But before anything else, I'm a father. The directors listened carefully. I've spent years watching companies forget that people matter more than profits. Employees become numbers. Customers become statistics. Kindness becomes weakness. He paused. That ends today. Nobody interrupted. Daniel continued, a business can be successful without losing its humanity. His eyes briefly met Victoria's. She understood the message immediately. The boardroom remained silent as he explained his vision for the company's future. Better treatment of employees. Stronger community programs. Greater respect for customers. Leadership based on integrity rather than fear. When he finished speaking, the room erupted into applause. Not because he was powerful. Not because he was wealthy. But because everyone believed him. His actions matched his words. He had proven that in the cafe. As the meeting ended, Marcus approached Daniel one final time. You changed my life twice, he said. Daniel smiled. Twice. Marcus nodded. The first time was when you pulled me from that fire. The second was today. Daniel looked surprised. Marcus continued, you reminded me what real strength looks like. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. Then make sure you pass it on. Marcus nodded. Across the room, Victoria watched quietly. She knew she would never forget this day. Not because she almost lost her position. Not because she had embarrassed herself. But because she had learned something she should have learned long ago. The value of a person cannot be measured by appearance. The strongest people are often the quietest. And sometimes the stranger sitting beside you carries a story greater than anything you could imagine. That evening, Daniel and his daughter returned to the same cafe. They sat at their usual table. The employees greeted them warmly. Customers smiled as they passed. Life seemed normal again. The little girl looked up at her father. Dad. Yes, sweetheart. Are you a hero? Daniel laughed softly. No. Marcus thinks you are. Daniel looked out the window as the sun began to set. A hero isn't someone who saves people once, he said. A hero is someone who chooses kindness every day. His daughter smiled. Then she wrapped her arms around him. And for the first time that day, Daniel allowed himself to relax. The storm was over. The truth had been revealed. And the lesson would remain long after the headlines disappeared. Because on that ordinary afternoon, a CEO learned humility, a bodyguard found the men who saved his life, and an entire city discovered that greatness often hides behind the simplest faces. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time, because this is only one of hundreds of powerful stories waiting for you on this channel. Your support keeps these stories alive. We'll see you in the next one.